Hello, welcome to our next Focus Cyber session as part of our Cybersecurity Career Day. And I am here to introduce our guest, Dominic Alegrete, starting out in cybersecurity, the steps I took, and the lessons I value most. Dominic, we turn it over to you.
All right, thank you so much for having me. Hello, everybody. For those that don't know, my name is Dominic Alegrete. I'm 21 years old and I'm a SOC analyst. And like they said, I'll be discussing just my overall journey into cybersecurity and the lessons that I've learned throughout my entire time being in the industry. And I just hope that today I can be of inspiration to you all, especially those that are younger, and show you that age doesn't matter in this industry and that any path can work as long as you put in the time and the effort. So, as far as in the beginning on how it began, like I said before, my path has been very untraditional to say the least. I don't have a college degree, and I actually started my senior year of high school when I was 17 years old. During that time, I was able to participate in the cybersecurity internship program, and that's what gave me my first taste of what cybersecurity really was. That program specialized in more so the defensive side of cybersecurity. So think of threat intelligence, threat analysis, incident response, and other things related to that. And I enjoyed the internship a lot because it was very hands on. We got to work with different tools, and it just exposed me to the day to day on what cybersecurity is about. And from there, I actually was able to become a lead intern within that program. So I'm 18 years old, managing people twice my age while still balancing high school and trying to be a senior. And I could definitely say those leadership skills and being thrown into the fire early has prepared me so much and is one of the leading catalysts for why I'm here today. And then I was able to then take that hands-on experience, and that allowed me to land my first tech position, which was a systems analyst role at a Fortune 500 company. And I was able to do this all before graduating high school. I worked that job for about a year and a half, and then from there, I just kept working, grinding, networking, getting certifications, and then that led to me landing my first cybersecurity role as a SOC analyst. So it took me about 3.5 years, but I could definitely say the wait has been worth it for sure. And another thing I wanted to talk about is like my why. I feel like this is very important when you get into cybersecurity because there's going to be a lot of lonely days when you're trying to self teach yourself a lot of things, and your why is what's going to get you through. And I feel like the three things on why I like cybersecurity and why I'm doing it is one, the freedom and flexibility. I feel like with cybersecurity, varying the position, you get a lot more time than say a IT position would because you're on call. And that's just helped create more of a balanced lifestyle for me. And it's allowed me to focus more on like my physical health, my mental health, as well as any extracurriculars that I may do, and that inherently, makes me more productive and helps me when I'm at work. And then I also like that it's something new every day. Like there's attacks going on every second of every minute of every day, and nothing's really ever the same. And it always challenges me to constantly learn. So that's something that I get very excited about. And I feel in that aspect, cybersecurity isn't really boring because it's something new each and every day. And then also just stay motivated and giving back. I feel cybersecurity is giving me a platform to help others and just preach to them and expose to them why cybersecurity is important and how I can support like the next generation of learners and people that are going to be within cybersecurity the next coming of years. And I'm just grateful that because of this accessible industry, it's allowed me to create that type of platform. Next, I wanted to get into what I did to actually get here, like the actual experience. I know I said earlier I participated in a cybersecurity internship. That was like a good bulk of my experience in the beginning stages of my career. But outside of the internship, you do have to put in work. Even when you do have a job, you still have to continuously learn because things are changing. And a lot of the learning I did was like self-taught, and this is where I spend a lot of hours just learning core concepts and fundamentals about cybersecurity. So think about like your networking, how devices communicate with each other, operating systems, writing reports, understanding how to even read the news, because that's something that gets talked about in interviews as well as in your job on how you're able to stay up to date. And I was able to do that through various websites, whether it be Udemy, YouTube. TCM Security is a really good one that's, very interactive, and that's where I was able to build a strong foundation. I then prepared and prep this with hands-on experience. So I was able to build home labs, test out different tools, and really understand how common tools actually work. And then I paired that with various interactive platforms like TryHackMe, Let's Defend, that allowed me to simulate different scenarios, allowed me to understand the attack landscape more, and really understand my niche and how I can become the best at it, which was being a cybersecurity analyst or a SOC analyst in that case. And then also I got certifications. This didn't come till about like a year and a half into my journey, and that's where I got my first certification, which was the Security Plus. And then from there, I already knew what my niche was and what I wanted to do. So every certification after that was pretty much focused on that specific area. And for me, that's defensive security. And I kind of went the tool-based route to show recruiters and others that, hey, I know how to use this tool, along with the home lab projects that I have. And the specific certs that I do now have is the Splunk Core and Power User. I was also able to get the Azure AZ900 certification along with the security fundamentals from Azure. I recently just got the CYSA from CompTIA, but those four certs that I mentioned first were kind of like the first four that I actually ever got, and they're the ones that helped me get the role that I'm at now. And then another thing I want to mention about cybersecurity and just the reason I'm able to be here and how I've gotten to this spot is networking. I really do feel networking is key. It may sound cliche, but it really is, and most likely comes down to what or who you know. 90% of referrals or jobs come from referrals, and it all started with me on LinkedIn and just building my overall social presence. I was able to, be consistent and just document my journey and progress consistently as I've, been working my way up. And it started small. It used to just be little posts about, hey, this is what I'm thinking about cybersecurity, or my thoughts on the industry, or I completed this course, all the way up into getting a new role, even, completing certification. So I made sure to stay active on LinkedIn, connect with others, reach out to people, as well as just build my overall personal brand, because your resume can only say so much. And doing that has, got me tremendous opportunities outside of just an actual role. And then within that, I've been able to build meaningful connections. And I've also had the opportunity to be mentored by a lot of people. The mentors that I have in my life, I take them very seriously, and I'm just grateful for each and every one of them. And I've been able to even leverage some of their networks to meet more people and get myself more acclimated into the cybersecurity and even tech industry at that. And then lastly, just more on the community engagement side, I started to attend conferences once I was ready, and I built up enough experience. And these conferences allowed me to get kind of like that in-person feel for others and develop relationships in person. They tend to last longer when you actually get to meet people and see them face to face. And networking and being at these conferences have definitely changed my life. And it's crazy now to think about it, because just a year ago, I was attending conferences as an attendee, and now I'm able to start speaking on panels at conferences. So it's definitely a full circle moment, and networking has definitely been key to my success and development in the industry. Now I wanted to get to more of like the title of this panel, and like the lessons that I value and the lessons that I've learned, because I've definitely learned a lot. I've messed up, I've made mistakes, but I've also done things in the right way in certain scenarios. So I definitely feel I've learned a lot, and I've been able to take about 4 key lessons that I've learned within the 3.5, almost 4 years of being in cybersecurity. The first one is everyone's path is different. And what I've learned is it's okay to not follow the traditional route. I think sometimes we can get caught up with social media and feel that we have to do something a certain way, but in reality, that's not true. Whatever works for you, do it. Not everybody has the same access to resources. So do with what you have and, be consistent and keep pushing forward even when the journey does get challenging. The second lesson I value and have learned is that soft skills matter. Yes, companies look for if you can do the role. So don't get it like twisted. You still have to have the skills and know how to use tools and different things of that nature. But companies also look for your communication, who you are as a person, your personality, and will you actually fit in with the team? So those different soft skills are as just as important as the actual technical skills themselves. So definitely keep that in mind when you are applying to these roles in our interviewing. Be yourself, be personable, and that can go a long way. Also, the third one is imposter syndrome is real. I've felt this plenty of times, especially with me only being 21 years old, and I've been the youngest on all of my teams. And there was times where I felt I didn't belong or I should be doing better. But I've come to realize that the way you get rid of doubt, the way you get rid of imposter syndrome is through the work and it's through the reps. The greatest athletes and players in the world, like your Kobe Bryant's, your Michael Jordan's, your Tiger Woods, they don't get to where they get to by mistake. They get to it by putting in the work and being consistent, and they push through that doubt. And I've learned over time that being consistent and putting in the work is what will remove it and has helped me actually build genuine confidence. And lastly, this is another big one, and social media plays a big part in people doing this. I've done it myself too. But don't compare yourself to others. You have to realize that everybody starts somewhere. So that senior analyst, that CEO, that top dog that's in the company, they all started as an intern. They all started as a novice. Everything takes time and there's levels to things. And you just have to keep building a step at a time and move at your own pace. And when you do that and you don't compare yourself to others, you'll start to see the wheels spin and things turn and things will work out for the best for you. Lastly, I just wanted to go into just some pieces of advice that I wish I probably had when I started. And these are just some of the things that I feel are very important when it comes to getting into cybersecurity, or even if you're trying to just make a shift. The first thing I always say, find your why. So understand and know what actually drives you. And this is what's going to actually keep you going when things get tough, because in cybersecurity, there a lot of things are critical, and there's going to be times where you're stressed. There's going to be times where you're going to be required to be in high demand, and you have to be able to push through that. And the way that you do is, one, having passion for the industry itself, but two, actually having a why and understanding the reason you're actually doing it in the first place. Second, I would pick a niche. So cybersecurity can be very diverse. There's GRC, there's engineering, there's purple teaming, there's red teaming, and so forth. And things can kind of get tricky, and you can go down a rabbit hole if you're not careful. So take the time to research and understand what job or what specific sector within cybersecurity you want to do and what aligns with your interests and your passions. And the ways you can do this is reaching out to people on LinkedIn, watching day in the life videos on YouTube, and really just researching what these roles entail. I've learned from so many people on LinkedIn, just asking them what's their day to day like. And that's definitely helped me understand the roles that I've wanted to be in and the roles that I don't want to be in. And it's just a simple ask. So definitely understand what your niche is and picking that in the beginning. Next, I would also say try to learn the fundamentals as quickly as you can. Don't rush, but like what I mean by quickly is in the beginning stages of your career. Like don't try to just learn tools right off the bat. I feel like people do that a lot and they end up not really understanding how to operate within cyber security. And when it comes to these basics, whether it be networking, understanding malware, operating systems, and different things of that nature, just take the time to learn them because they'll always show up, no matter if it's in a tool, no matter if it's in a meeting, or even in articles when you're reading. And another thing that I like to mention with fundamentals is once you've learned the fundamentals, learn the fundamentals of your niche. I like to say you can't be a penetration tester if you don't know what a pen test is or a rule of engagement is. You can't be a SOC analyst if you don't know what a SIM tool does or why a SOC analyst is important. So take the time to also learn the fundamentals of your niche, and then from there branch out to the different tools that are needed for you to do your role. And then the last two, make sure you are networking with intention. Have a plan on how you want to network, how you're going to reach out to people. I know plenty of other panelists have probably said this already. Be different and do what others aren't willing to do. So if that means you're going to message 100 people or X amount of people, go do that. Offer your services. Ask if you can help them. You know, a lot of people in this world like to take, and they don't really like to like give. So if you're coming off as someone who's being a giver, that person is more likely to mentor you, they're more likely to help you, and they're more likely to just give you advice on how to navigate the space easier. And I say start with LinkedIn. That's kind of the simplest form of networking because it's online. And then once you get more comfortable, go to local meetups. There's websites like Eventbrite where you can find these type of things. And then when you then get enough experience, start going to conferences. It could be starting out in your state. And then when you get enough experience and you get comfortable and you have confidence, start going to these more broader, bigger conferences. It may cost a little bit of money, but it's worth it in the end if you have a plan and you know that there's going to be a lot of high level people at said conference. And then lastly, just be consistent. Show up daily, whether it's for a few minutes or a few hours. We're all not perfect. There's going to be days where we don't feel like studying, but if you can push through that rut and actually do the studying that's required, you're going to go a long way. And every day does count since everything is always constantly changing and there's always cyber attacks happening. So we have to stay on our P's and Q's and understand what's actually going on within the industry. And being consistent has definitely helped me as well. And that's it pretty much for my presentation. If you would want to stay connected with me and learn more about my journey, these are pretty much the popular platforms that I'm on. YouTube, I kind of go by Dom the Cyber Genius. It's like a nickname I've given myself. And then I also have a newsletter. I put that in um, I believe there's a document where you can post resources from this panel and all the other panels from today. So I've put that there. And then I also have a LinkedIn, which is Dominic Alegrete. For some reason, my presentation was acting funky today and technology was not on my side and it kept not allowing me to like edit. So that's why you see the individual see, but my apologies for that grammatical error. But that's really it. Thank you all again for allowing me to speak today, and I hope you were able to learn something from my journey, and thank you.
So Dominic, real quick, we're just going to add some questions. I'm going to pop off in a second. So just if you can read the questions and just answer them, we've got a whole bunch in the chat.
Perfect. Yeah. There's the first question. It says, as a SOC analyst, do you have to work tough hours or overnight with being on call? That is a good question. I think every SOC varies depending on the size and how many people are there. Luckily, the company that I work at, there's a good amount of us, so we all take turns on rotating shifts. It's 4 days a week, and the shifts are 10 hours. I don't really consider it crazy. But when it does come to like your first actual role, you may not have the leeway to get the hours you want. So you're just gonna have to sacrifice and take that schedule that may not be the best, whether it be graveyard. I personally work the early morning shift, so I work 5 a.m. to 3 p.m. Pacific time. And I'm more of like a morning person, so I don't look at my schedule as being tough. But for some people, that may be tough. But it's just something you have to go through in the beginning stages when you don't have as much leeway. But I think as you start to progress in the SOC and you become like a senior, that's when you then start working tough hours because there's a lot of things that are going on and that you have to manage. But if you're productive and you balance your life correctly, you'll be able to make it through. The next question, it says from Nick, in your opinion, how was the Splunk certifications in terms of difficulty, and what was the amount of time you took to study each day? For me, I feel the Splunk certifications were probably my easiest certifications, just in a sense, because it's at the end of the day, it's a tool. So the more you get familiar with said tool and the more that you actually get to practice and see its interface, the easier the exam becomes. A lot of these other certifications, like your CompTIA is and the low level Azure certs, they're a lot more theory based. So that may require a lot more like studying and note taking. But I would say the Splunk certifications were um, manageable and pretty easy for me. The first certification, Splunk Core, that one took me a few weeks to study for, and that's just because I've already been on and off learning Splunk and different things of that nature. The second one, the Power User, that one took about maybe a month or so because there was a lot more information within it. But I feel once you get familiar with the tool, you take good notes and go through a good course, you should be able to pass it. The next one, it says, how do you balance extracurricular self-learning and labs outside of working hours with work-life balance in mind? That's a good question. I feel like it all starts with a plan. I know my screen's blurred, but right next to me is a whiteboard, and that's where I plan out my days and my weeks. And I feel like it all starts from the ground up. Make sure you actually have a plan and a routine on what you're gonna do each and every day. Make sure you're prioritizing the right things, such as your mental health and your physical health, because that's only going to help you more and allow you to be more focused when you're at the job. And then also take advantage of your downtime. Cybersecurity in certain sectors, it isn't like IT where you have to be on call and you have to always be on the computer. There's times where you're going to have downtime because the queue may be low or there's just not a lot of tickets in there. So use that time to your advantage. Use it to do whatever activities you're trying to do. And then when you have off days, take advantage of those off days. Don't always try to slack off. Make sure you're still learning, but then also you're resting as well. I feel like having the 4 days a week definitely helps with having like that extra off day. So that's kind of how I balance things and keep those in mind. Next one is, do you feel like SOC is a good entry point or entry position, or do you feel like a different position would be better? I think it just depends. It's a good entry point because I don't want to say it's like completely entry level, but you don't need like a crazy amount of experience to be able to get that role. I think it just depends on what you're trying to go after. I know penetration testing and those type of roles are a little bit harder because it does require knowing coding and other things like that. But also keep in mind everything is different. I would also like to say GRC, governance, risk, and compliance is easy to, or I don't even want to say easy, but that's another like entry level point where you don't have to be as technical as like a SOC analyst or penetration tester would. Next question from Nick again. In your opinion, oh, I think that was a repeated question. I think I already had answered the question about the Splunk certifications, but yeah. Next one, it was, what first sparked your interest in cybersecurity and how did you know it was the right path for you? That's a good question. First, I've always liked computers. I've been around technology for a long time, or at least most of my life. And really what started my love for technology was like in sixth grade. I used to do coding and doing things like that. And then in high school, I took up video editing. But it wasn't until like my senior year, that summer going into it, my father introduced me to one of my mentors, and his name is William Sims. And he kind of just told me about cybersecurity because before that, we knew what cybersecurity was, but not really. We just think it's hackers in a hoodie and in a dark room. But he was just telling me how it's more to it. And what really sparked my interest was the flexibility, but also if I take it serious, I can put myself on the road to freedom, abundance, whether that's financial freedom, spiritual freedom, physical freedom, mental freedom, all of the above. And I feel cybersecurity is one of those paths that you can do that. And then I always just enjoy constantly learning. I'm like self-learning junkie in a sense, so I'm always willing to do things to learn and better myself. So that's kind of what sparked my interest in it.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here today on a Saturday.
No
and
problem. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. We're having
No worries.
now a session about how AI plays a critical role in cybersecurity with Sharat Agarwal. So please stay tuned and follow us under the next link, please. Thank you so much, Dominic.
No
Thank you.
problem, everybody. Take
Bye.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.